What's going on, everyone? Mike Plachter, that flipping accountant, and welcome to Flipped Off. Today I got a really special guest today. I got Jeremiah Dalton, Suffolk County house buyers. Someone I really look up to in the industry. Probably one of the biggest fix and flip investors on Long Island. And I'm really grateful you're on, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a full-time fix and flip investor, and we range basically all over Suffolk County, and we do $200,000-$300,000 homes and $2-3 million homes. So we really kind of run the gamut as far as the projects that we'll take on throughout the county, but we don't really venture too much outside of Suffolk. We tend to stay within that area. It's a large enough area, and there's enough volume for us to stay busy. But I have, been at this now for about 7 years, and
Wow.
It's started with just one house, a bank-owned home. I'll never forget it, in Middle Island, and I did it. I flipped it. I had a tough time doing that flip, but I bought it, sold it, all within less than 5 months, despite going through a rough rehab. I had to fire my very first contractor, and it was one of those things where once I got that first deal under my belt, I realized, like, oh wow, like I can do this. Like, this isn't as hard as I thought it would be. And I realized I had a good propensity for raising private capital. I built a lot of relationships with people over the years, and they knew me and liked me and trusted me, and most importantly, believed in what I was doing. So I was able to raise some capital right out of the get-go. And then the biggest hurdle that I actually ran into was just finding contractors and finding deals. Those are the two, I would say. And then I really started to put a lot of time and emphasis into direct marketing, direct-to-seller marketing. And I was doing all this while I was working a full-time job. And the business got to the point, I think when I left my job, I may have done like 10 flips that year, something like that, 8 to 10 flips. But it was enough that I knew that, like, all right, like I could do this. I was so miserable where I was. It was a horribly run organization, and I had to get out of there. So I think there was, while I didn't know if I was 100% ready, I knew 100% that like I could not stay there anymore. And so I left, and I started to do more and more deals, and it's grown to what it is now, and it's been a fun ride so far.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, dude. All right, so let's go back to like how'd you get started in real estate? What attracted you to real estate?
Well, I mean, I grew up in construction, so a lot of people have asked me that, so I had that background. So building and rehabbing and stuff, I knew a lot about that, So there was that. I'm not really great with my hands, but I knew the whole process and everything that needed to happen, so it wasn't like I was going into it cold. So that was a big help. I knew that there was a lot of people that were building wealth in real estate. I knew that more millionaires were created through real estate than any other career path, any other industry. And then what I noticed was that, what I really wanted was the freedom, right? I wanted the ability to be around for my kids. I wanted the ability to make my own schedule. The job that I had, on top of it being a horrible place to work, I had to be at work at 7 a.m. in Queens, and I had to be, I was done at like 5:30, and by the time I got home, so I was basically gone from like 5:30 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. You know what I mean, more or less. And that for me, that just wasn't going to be satisfactory towards having a family and being around for them. And my daughter was born shortly after I started that job, and I remember like working the hours. There were times I didn't see her for weeks at a time. Not weeks at a time, but at least a full week, because Monday to Friday, by the time I got up and by the time I got home, she was asleep during that time. So I never got to see her. And so that really resonated with me that like, hey, if I'm going to be at a place that I don't want to be at, then I need to be doing something that gives me freedom and something that I enjoy doing. And so that's what really made the most sense for me.
Okay. I want to hear your story about, like, because you were an attorney. You went to law school, and you got a job. You were working, I guess tell us a little about, like, your story as the attorney working for, I think said you were working for, like a what was it, like Teamsters or one of those unions, right?
It was a labor union. I won't mention the one that it is, but it was something that I thought, I could really make a difference or an impact at, and it was just filled with really bad, poisonous people. I'll just say that. Not everybody, but a good portion of it, and I knew that, like any other politics, government agency, right? Like, sometimes it's too far gone, you know what I mean, to make the changes that you want, and so that was the case there. So the first year, I kind of held out hope. In the second year, I was like, this isn't looking good. I should really have a backup plan, which is what real estate became. And by the third year, it was like, hey, I'm not going to be here. Let's work on, really trying to build this. And then I think it was the fourth year there where it was finally like that fourth year, and I was like, this is going to be my last year. You know what I mean? And I did everything I could to get out of there. And I look at it, I think I left, it was like December 13th. And I was like, mark that day on my calendar. It was like, my personal Independence Day.
That's hilarious. Yeah. All right. So what was that like, going from, I guess, you're working full-time, and then you have a business on the side that you were trying to grow to be your full-time thing. I guess, so how many years were you doing that while you were at the job? And then, like, how hard was that struggle, really getting from, because it is, listen, it's a struggle.
Like I said, the first year was about me just, trying to settle into this place. And what happened is a lot of the work that they were giving me was so silly and rudimentary, I found ways to kind of streamline it. And then I was left with all this time on my hands, you know what I mean? And I would ask them, well, when I started to, I revamped a lot of the systems for some things that they did. And when I realized, that wasn't enough to really get their attention, and they weren't going to give me more challenging work, I was like, well, these systems I've made have freed up a lot of my time. So I'm going to use that time to build my real estate business. That's exactly what I did. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm not. My first intention was to be there and do a great job for them. But like I said, it was just bad leadership that unfortunately, at that point, there was no sense in me trying to do anything else because it wasn't going to get anywhere. So, it was the next couple of years of just sort of building it and, building that direct marketing machine and, realizing that, okay, hey, direct to seller marketing works. I don't have to go for foreclosures. I don't have to, overbid for a bank-owned property on the MLS. This is working. And that was really what I've spent the last couple of years. It's just always trying to, do more marketing, do better marketing. As the market has now shifted, we've taken a bit of a different approach, and we're looking at it more from the standpoint of what's providing us the greatest return in an effort to keep, our costs down. But that's always been, the lifeline, the lifeblood of the business. And then as that business grows, of course, you have to adapt and change and bring in other people to service other components of the job, the industry, and the business. But that has always been at the forefront of my mind is how do we market, how do we get in front of more sellers? Because that's the cure for all your problems, more sales.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, so we'll get into that direct mail or direct marketing in a second. I just want to say, what are some keys that you can give to someone who may be working a 9-to-5 job, who's trying to get out and to do this full time, like what you did?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about real estate, you're going to have to live one below your means. You're going to have to take. So for me, I was flipping houses, right? The job I had was covering our bills. It wasn't really like a ton left over, but because we lived, and we had a nice lifestyle. You know what I mean? That was a struggle, right? Like, do I leave all this and I didn't want to take away from where we were living, what we're doing. Right. I didn't want to cut back, but some people have to. So that's a choice, right? Where I was fortunate, I was able to flip enough houses that any money that I made, I just was able to put back into the business, right? So if you can cut back a little bit on your expenses, use that surplus to invest in direct to seller marketing, whatever that may be. Driving for dollars is good. I would even potentially listen. There's a lot that could be done, right from here on the telephone. Networking with as many realtors as possible. I didn't do a ton of networking. I did work with a realtor at the time that was bringing me some stuff because I was getting a handful of deals. So I would say if it were me, find one marketing channel that you can go all in on, use it to bring deals, partner up with a young up-and-coming realtor that's hungry and as ambitious as you are. Hopefully, maybe it'll be like a 50-50 sort of split where you give him the listings, if you're fixing and flipping the listings on the back end, he finds you a couple of deals, right?
Right.
That's kind of like what I did. As the business has grown and I've done so many deals, a lot of deals now just come to me, right? Just because people know me. And that's without me doing a ton of networking. I'm starting to, in 2023, going to do, more networking, getting in front of more realtors. I hadn't done that a lot in the past. Because it was sort of like, we had a very good marketing machine, but as the market now changes, we're looking for the highest ROI, you know what I mean? And the highest ROI is always, your network.
100%.
And if you can build a strong network of people that know, like, and trust you and can bring you deals. Now, again, if you're wholesaling, it's a bit of a different story, right? Because if you're a realtor, they expect that, deal on the back end. But you can probably work something out with them where, they can, you could still pay them a commission for that deal, and they probably have to do very little work.
Yeah.
So I think there is that element that you can bring to the table. But if to summarize it, one marketing channel that gives you some legitimacy, coupled with a strong network of realtors, at least one or two people to really tie into, that are going to work just as hard as you do, and you'll start to see it compound. And then, like I said, for me, I had somebody bringing me some deals, I was doing deals, and then I was taking all that money and then reinvesting into more marketing. So it snowballed from that point on,
Yeah, so that I don't know if you know, it's like coach with Carl Chavone, and I've been coaching him for over a year now, probably 2 years now. But that's literally what he's teaching me. First off, we built the foundation of the business, but his strategy is more network focused, and it is the best return on your investment because that investment is zero.
It's zero, but it's a lot of time. You know what I mean?
A lot, yeah.
I didn't have the time, you know what I mean, when I was working full time. So I had to figure out what I could do to pay to get in front of as many people. Then obviously a father of 3 kids and a lot going on. Now it's to the point where I'm willing, as my kids have gotten a little bit older, they're in school all day, I can say to myself, all right, you know what, we're going to focus on quality projects, do less, and use that remaining time to really build on, that network.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, what I've kind of done is a little like it's network focused. So I've like two prongs, right? You got most of my business is network. It's literally gotten me my most deals. I got my rental property off of that. I did like a little side deal where I made some money, and that's all from directly. I have like a texting where I text a video to like realtors, a lot of them, and then I try to get them on the phone, build a relationship, do the grunt work, but. That's like half my business, and the other half is going after the homeowners through SMS. But I don't have the time because clearly I have a job, but I've tried to figure out a way I could do it where I'm not, I don't have to go to networking events and be away from my kids. I've kind of tried to do it strictly with the cell phone, like you were saying. So right now that's been working for me. But yeah, so like I said, it's like half of it is going after the homeowners directly because that's where the most meat is on the bone, I think. A lot of times the realtors, they send me deals. I get deals left and right, but they're not great deals. Some of them could be like, I get listings sometimes. They're like, oh, here's my listing. I'm like, I'm $150,000 cheaper than that list. Like I can't make money at retail,
Yeah, and again, I think what you'll find, and we have a number of deals recently that we closed from other investors or other realtors, and they were very, very, very good deals. We're actually about to on the market that a realtor brought us with a very, very good deal.
Nice.
And I will actually tell you that the realtor deals can actually be very, very lucrative if they have a pre-existing relationship with that realtor, and especially now, right? The last 2 years, the realtor was like, don't leave any money on the table, this market's hot, like, just put it on and let's see what you get. And they're like, all right, you know what I mean? I don't want to miss this wave. Now that that wave started to subside, and again, it's still a strong market. It's just not the craziness it once was. Now people are like, I really just want that guarantee, right? You know, who do you know that could just buy this thing cash? You know what I mean? And so I think now more than ever, I think realtor deals, you're going to have a lot of realtors that are going to go on appointments that they otherwise would have listed. People like, I just want cash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like, I know the market wave is over. I don't want to wait. And that's what we do. Like, we always tell people, like, what do we offer? We sell certainty, right? We sell the ability that, like, hey, you want fast, you want easy, you want guaranteed. That's what we give you. It's not going to be the most money, but that's what you're going to get. If you're okay with that, well, then we're the perfect fit for you. And if you're not, and you're willing to wait it out, then that's fine. Then you're better off with me.
Yeah, no, the realtors are great. Like, so with my rental property that I got, literally, so I built a relationship with a realtor who's a rock star in the, you know, it's in Bellport. So she's like got a ton of relationships network out there. So anyway, she brought me a deal. The homeowner, husband passed. She owned it with her husband, obviously. It's a rental property for them. The tenant was moving out. And it needed a lot of work. You know, it wasn't something that she didn't have the construction experience, obviously. So when the realtor went to, you know, meet her and everything like that, it was kind of like, hey, you know, we could put this on the market, but you got to have to fix the bathroom, do the kitchen, do that, get the cigarette smoke off the walls, you know, stuff like that, which she probably wasn't going to do. Or you could take a little less and go to an investor, and I could probably get you this number. So, you know, that's exactly what happened. I got it inspected. I ran through the property. The numbers made sense, and we bought it. And that's, you know, if you get enough connections with realtors, that's kind of how you can grow your business. But it takes time, like you said, and it's a lot of work. But so tell me a little bit about your business. Like when you first started, your first couple deals, I guess, like you said, it was a bank-owned property, right? So how'd you get the deal? Like, what'd your team look like then? Are you still working with similar people now?
No, I mean, there was I went to like a networking event, and there was somebody there, a realtor, and she also did like funding. She also had like a funding business, and so she's like, I work for, I think she worked for Island Advanced Properties,
Yes.
and she was like sending me stuff, putting me on the list, and then I came across this house, and I overbid to get it. It was listed for like 140, and I think I bid up to like 161 for it.
Wow.
And I kind of figured I could get like somewhere in the range of like 285 and 280 I think at the time I counted. I wound up selling it for 285. And I put like, I wouldn't do this deal now, but I put in like 65,000. I had a line of credit that I used, so my cost of borrowing were less than they normally are for using like private investors. I think I made like 25 to 30,000, somewhere in that range. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that was enough to really like give me a tremendous boost. You know?
Listen. I mean, that's not chump change. I mean, that, like you said, you were putting it back. You already had the job, paying for the bills. It's not like you needed the money to live or anything like that. And then if you can get an extra, I always say to people, if I had an extra $30K, I came in from a deal, I'd dump it right back into the business. I don't need the money. I have a job. It pays me well. But yeah, just 30 grand extra funding for my business right now would certainly get me a deal. I could do a direct mail campaign successfully, whatever, put it wherever I need to put it. But it's huge, man. So that's awesome. I guess, yeah, we kind of touched on this, the direct to homeowner marketing. It's kind of how you built your business, right? That's probably your number one way of getting deals, I'm assuming. And so I was thinking, like, as the market changes, is that going to continue to be what you're going to do? It's more of like an ROI thing, like you were saying, or I guess.
Yeah, so the focus the last 2 years was get in front of as many sellers, try to buy as many houses as you can, because the market's at our back, and so the deal makes sense. Do it, right? Even if it was sort of like, you know, we think this is pretty good, but, you know, worst comes to worst, you know, we'll break even. That's usually what happened, right? But our costs were very high.
Okay.
Like the amount of money that I had, you know, in the business and the people to work those systems and the amount of marketing, there was a lot. Now we've condensed operations a little bit because we're being much more selective about what we buy.
Okay.
To the point that now, in the past, let's say we needed 3 good deals, you know what I mean, to break even on our monthly expenses.
Okay.
Now we only need like one, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so it takes the pressure off. We're looking at houses that, fit a few boxes. One, they can't be like strange houses, right? Like, unless we get the house for an absolute score, they can't be like strange. Like some houses that we had some issues with and, took some losses on this year were kind of like a little odd, right?
Okay.
So they don't have that cookie cutter feel to them. Gone, right? You know what I mean? Like not working. Obviously the spreads have to be big. We could still, be aggressive on houses if they're in areas where demand is still very high. We'll be aggressive on those. But outside of that, we want to see large enough spreads in areas where we know that demand is still very high. And so if that means getting less houses, that's okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd rather do that. And like I said, our focus is we might do less in 2023, but we might be more net profitable because, our gross might be down, but our expenses will be down accordingly, and, we might do better than we did last year. And so if that's the case, then I think it's important that, we just are very, tight on our numbers, and we're really just going for, stuff that, we know is going to do very, very well.
That makes sense. Yeah, you want to, as the market changes, you got to trim the fat a little bit. I think we're going into a recession. We may or may not be, based on whatever technical definition you want to call a recession. But yeah, as that happens, maybe you can't be putting, hundreds of thousands of dollars into, PPC or whatever, or all kinds of stuff.
Listen, a recession. People get concerned about a recession, but I would tell you actually a recession probably will be the best thing for the real estate market.
Yeah.
Because right now nobody's really believing that we're in a recession, and I don't know if we are, if we aren't. But the moment that it's undeniable that we are, 10-year Treasury rates start to go down. And if 10-year Treasury rates start to go down, then the mortgage rates go down with them. If mortgage rates go down, then you're going to see a lot more people jump back into the fray. You know what I mean? So
that's interesting.
A recession doesn't scare me. What scares me is the 10-year Treasury. Right now we're in the high threes, but I notice when it goes over 4 and rates go into the 7s, that's when really
the faucet's off. It's kind of like,
you know what I mean. In the 6s, we still have a good amount of demand, and if we're below 6, forget about it. Like what I mean. You're good. You won't. The days of the 2 and 3% are over.
Yeah.
But I would say that 4s and 5s will still have a very, very strong market.
Yeah, no, like my mom works in titles, and she was very slow over the last couple of months since it's been in the 7s. And I think it's at like 6.5 now, or maybe it's borderline. But now she's like so busy, you know what I mean? So, I just think it's I think that could be like that benchmark above, bad.
Yeah, I don't know why that number people really just can't stop it. And you know what? Neither can I. You know what I mean? Neither could I. If you told me your rate's 6 1/4, I'm like, all right. You tell me 7, I'm like,
I don't know where we're going. I think the guys that I follow, they're more in finance, not real estate, but they're predicting higher interest rates because the Fed has said that. They're like, listen, our number one job is to stop inflation. Inflation's still at 7%. The rates are at 4 for federal, the Fed fund rate. So they're going to keep raising that until they can get inflation to like 2 to 3 is what they've said. So if they continue to raise, you got to think mortgage rates are going up from here, but we don't know.
Well, I wouldn't say that, and because the Federal Reserve them raising the rates, doesn't really impact as much as everybody thinks it's the bond market. Now, there's some kind of relationship there, but again, what I look for is CPI numbers. If we see, people forget that, like, I don't know if this Fed board will do that, but it was in like the 70s.
Yeah.
I wasn't alive then. But Paul Volcker was the chair at the time. Inflation was still at like 7, 8. Now, granted, it was much higher. He started cutting rates because he knew that that right there that he saw that it was going down, right? And that he needed to cut rates to get ahead of it because he had to stimulate the economy ahead of time. This Fed board tends to be much more reactive, which is obviously the concern. But, you know, if inflation really just starts to show, regardless of what the Federal Reserve does, it starts to just show down, month over month, the bond market will respond to that. You know what I mean? And, you know, if we get, you know, the 10-year Treasury in the high twos, you know, at that point, you know, you're in the five.
Right. Yeah, no, that's interesting. But all right, let's go into how you're getting deals. I mean, directly to sellers. Are you doing like PPC, direct mail, SMS?
We do it all. You know, we SMS, direct mail. What our market is it becomes like a giant ecosystem, right? So we run television ads. It's hard. One of the biggest things that I'm really trying to do inside of 2023 is really, and I don't talk to the sellers really very often. Right? I have a team that handles that part, but I do want to really have more one-on-one conversations with sellers where I'm really trying to figure out how they found us. Because a lot of times it's from a few places. Like, so you're here, so you're there, so you're there. How do you give credit to what marketing channel it is? You can't, right? Now we're at the point where I just look and say, this is what we spent on marketing. This is what we brought in. Collectively, is it all there, right? And so if it's there, we do it. Direct mail is one of those things that we've pulled back on. But again, I can't tell you how many times we get what we think is a web lead, only to find out I've had a letter that's been sitting on my desk for, you know, a year now. You know what I mean? But they didn't call the number on the letter, which is directly tied to, you know, our CoreRail account that helps us track it. They just went to our website. You know what I mean? So understanding the mindset of your seller is going to be really, really important for you, and how they found you to really dial in. You know what I mean? Broad metrics, I don't think, are going to work as well. You know?
Right? Yeah, like they get a postcard that says Suffolk County House Buyers, and they go onto your website. Comes in as a form filled out on your website. You're like, oh, it's an SEO lead, but no, like you're saying, is direct mail.
It's not. I mean, even then, you know, we do paid direct, you know, paid Google, and we also do SEO. You know what I mean? How'd you find me? I found you online. Was it paid ad or an organic ad? What's that? You know, you don't know. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just have to chalk it up to whatever it might be.
Yeah. So, all right. So the one thing I wanted to mention was like, so I underestimated the skill set, the sales skills that you need, you know, going directly to homeowners. You know what I mean? I have like a response plan and stuff, but like a lot of stuff you need to kind of think on the fly. So did you have like any training or you read any books, or you kind of were just always kind of had that natural skill set?
I've always been good at sales, but that was something I passed off very quickly.
Really?
So I had somebody that I had hired that I had her like taking calls, because we had like services to answer these calls, because don't forget, I had a full-time job. So I had services to answer those calls, and I wasn't really happy with them. And then shortly after I went to working full-time, I realized, like, I'm all in on this. Like, this is my first impression. The person I had as like my assistant at the time, she started answering calls, and she was good at it, and then she moved into that sales element. So I've always paid for training, you know, sales training. Greg Helbeck, who is, you know, one of my closest friends. You had him on the podcast.
He's the best.
You know, he, for the longest time, you know, was doing private training, you know, for my team.
Okay.
Now it's gotten to the point where like they've done it so often that it's just second nature to them. But yeah, I mean, I can't underestimate, you can't overstate how important that is. You know what I mean? It's just,
so you had people like obviously answering any incoming calls, or even outgoing, but they would qualify them, obviously, and then would they ever pass them on to you, or they actually were like negotiating, doing that?
They did the whole thing.
Wow.
They did the whole thing. I wanted somebody that, like, you call, you answer, like, it was a very... As we started to get more leads, I had somebody separate that was taking calls, booking things, and then passing it to acquisitions. Now, as our lead flow maybe has slowed down a bit, that's an all-in-one job. You answer the phone, it's the person who's going to be negotiating, you know, build a relationship with them. right off the bat.
Wow.
But we can handle the volume has slowed down because we're getting tighter on the types of deals that we have and tighter on the types of marketing that we do that we can afford. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The person who's handling that can afford to, has the time to do everything.
Okay, and you're underwriting the deal still, right? Or are you just focusing on managing the task within?
No, we have a team. We work with realtors. It's very simple. There's a formula that we follow. The only thing that really they come to me for is look at the photos to see how much work there is.
Okay.
And I get input from the people that go on the appointments too, but that's my only thing. Once they know the rehab number, then they know what to offer. They might say, "Hey, what do you think?" And I'm gonna say, you can push that up a little bit because of X, Y, and Z. This is an in-demand area. We'll pay a little bit more for this house because I know it'll sell.
All right, so these people are either realtors who know the ARV or like someone who is their skill set in determining what ARVs are. They're good at it. So that's kind of someone who's trained.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a formula. Whatever that may be for you. For some people, it's 80% mileage repairs, 75% mileage repairs, 70% mileage repairs. Whatever that formula is, if you think it's necessary, subtract out the repairs. So really, you need to know is ARV and repairs. Plug it into your formula, and you're good to go.
I know. Yeah, I don't necessarily do the 75% rule, which a lot of people do. I'm not saying one is good or bad, but I have this big spreadsheet. But pretty much, you need two numbers, like you said. You need the ARV. You need to know what the cost is to rehab it, and maybe the fine line of like how long you're going to hold it for, because that that changes a little bit, but not a big amount. But yeah, those are the two big ones. I mean, as you know. So before we wrap up, you did mention you raise a lot of money for the business. It's a very capital intensive business. I guess for someone who's looking to raise some more money for the business, just starting out, what would you suggest they do? Should they be taking investors out on for lunch and coffee and stuff like that, or just continue to network? I don't know. Like, how were you doing it when you first started?
I do network with people. I had a lot of people reaching out to me.
Okay.
How they saw my stuff. So post on social media first and foremost. Then you're going to get a lot of people that want to get into the business, and then you're going to say, well, why don't you offer them an opportunity to invest, right? So a lot of these people have the money on the side, and you're just like, I don't want to find a deal. Well, why don't you invest with me? I'll show you what it is. Then sometimes they see it, they're like, hey, I don't want to do this. I'll just invest with you. We'll just leave it alone. So you get that. We offered incentives to people if they brought us private money. We would pay them a 1% fee. Is to hey, if we get a deal, we'll give you, they put up $400,000, we will give you $4,000.
Huh?
Right?
Nice.
So we've done that. It was a one-time, one-off thing, and then you do a good job. More likely than not, you're going to have that capital, right, for however long you want. So it's a good investment. Speaking at REI groups is really good. I've met some people through REI groups, and I've raised money that way. And then really taking care of your private investors. You really, really take care of them, and you go above and beyond. They start telling other people because it's cool to say, I'm investing in fix and flip project. Oh, I'd like to know about that. So I would, if it were me, really, really go above and beyond. Once they're in the deal, really treat them well, make them feel like they're a part of the company, show them the ugly side of it. It's important for them to see the ugly side. Because then they're like, oh, I really don't want to be into this. And they have a greater appreciation for what it is that you do. And then lastly, a lot of these sellers that you buy from, if you're buying cash, they're walking away with a big chunk of money. We've had some people sellers of ours have now become some very big investors. Because people think, these people they sell because they can't afford to. No, sometimes they just can't. Sometimes they have so much money, they just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just can't be bothered with having to actually handle the sale. They've got bigger fish to fry. They got bigger financial things to worry about, and we've had people that have sold to us that have become investors of us, big investors. Yeah,
and I'm dealing with one right now with guys in Mastic, house in Mastic, but he owns a rental there, and he owns a ton down south, and guys, he has plenty of money, right? But he's just one of the tenants stopped paying, and he just doesn't want to be bothered anymore. So it's a lead. I don't know if we'll get the deal or not, but the point is, yeah, someone like that, they have plenty of money. And a lot of the sellers I talk to, they have money. They have plenty of rental properties, and they're just like, yeah, I'll sell it for if the numbers make sense. Like I'll sell it to you.
Yeah, don't forget, a lot of times they bought these things years and
Yeah,
years
right,
ago.
right.
But they have the ability to sell at a discount because they're still walking away with a big chunk of change.
Yeah. Like I had one in Riverhead. The guy was like, he brought the number to me. He said 275. I was in that range, maybe a little lower, but the house was worth, $4 and change easily. And there was tenants in there. They might have been paying a little less than they should have been paying. But, you buy it. They're great tenants. You raise it up a little bit, and you make some money. So that could be a good way of getting a rental property. But anyway, so I guess that's pretty much it. Any goals that you have with the business at this point, where you're looking to go?
The goal really is, my family is the most important thing to me, you know what I mean, and having as much time for them and being as, available for them as I can be, and I'm not exactly where I want to be with that, but, 2022 was up and down. There were things that were unbelievable, and there were things that were, we got sued for a title claim, we had stop work orders, we had tenants, squatters. It was a tough year, and so that kind of takes away from your focus. And when I mean focus, like focus on like my family and stuff like that. So for me, 2023 is really trying to accomplish what we accomplished in 2022, but with less. You know what I mean? And so I want to I want to exceed kind of what we did from a net revenue standpoint in 2022, but I want to do it doing less houses, right?
Okay.
And having a leaner, smaller, more efficient operation, and that's what's really important to me. Frees up my time to do other things. The last couple of months, I've really taken a big active role in my fitness, which I never did in my life.
I saw that post. You lost a lot of weight. It's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, and it was, and I've lost weight in the past, but now it's like I'm actually losing weight and actually building a physique, not just going from like a fat guy to like a skinny, lanky guy, which I've done like 6 or 7 times. I've done it more than Oprah, but it was like I want to actually go from a heavy guy to like a fit guy. Right? I've never been like a fit guy, right? And so that's a big goal for me, inside of this year. But by the summer, you know what I mean, I'm going to be the guy that, you know what I mean, I'm not going to have the dad bod. I'm not going to look good for 38 years old. I'm going to look good as if I'm 23 years old. Like
awesome.
That's what's important to me on a personal level. And just being more, just having more control over my time.
Yeah.
And having the ability to just be a little bit more at peace, you know what I mean? And not always feel like, be preoccupied with, things in my life that I otherwise, would have, especially these parents.
Okay. All right. No, listen, that's great stuff, man. I really appreciate, coming on, and what you're doing is really inspiring to me. I really look up to you, man. And I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. That's a wrap.